Hey everyone, welcome back to another video on being intentionally creative. So, interesting thought. When I do these videos, I always have to be creative in what I come up with, and I have to have something interesting that's going to get you thinking. And it helps me as well, because the more I do these videos, the better I get at explaining all about creativity to you. Although I think you're beginning to get a sense of this whole being creative and what it's about, where it exists, the magical places that it lives, as you found out in a previous video. Today I want to talk about something interesting that I don't think a lot of people think about. I'm hoping, though, it opens or inspires any of you out there to give this some consideration, because I think it's really important. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about job interviews. And I'm specifically wanting to open the field up, if you will, to the questions that could potentially be asked in a job interview. Now, coming from a corporate world, I appreciate that when we were hiring people, there had to be some specific questions we asked in order to ensure that the job you were going into, you actually had the knowledge or the skill set to be able to do the job that we needed you for, which is fair. It's like baking a cake. We need to have the right ingredients so that the cake comes out and tastes the way we want it to. Just like in the world I worked in, we needed to have people who understood computer terminology, could work with various codes in order to produce the results we wanted, so that I could do the testing to make sure that the code was right and working the way I needed it to be. Again, because when I was in the corporate world, I didn't understand this creative aspect at all. I don't think now, and knowing what I know, we were actually sometimes asking the right questions. I appreciate that there are people who go to school for specific knowledge building, to come out of university, come out of college, and be able to walk into a job. One of the things I found when I was in the corporate world, there were people who had university degrees, but they were working in my department, and their skills that they'd gone to school with weren't aligned with what they were actually doing, which I think is really unfortunate. I also think that there are people out there who, and I get it, it gets to a point where I just need a job. Don't care what it is. I just need to get my foot in the door somewhere and let's go. The problem with that is that sometimes, though, even though you've got a job, your morale may start to fizzle out after a while because you're not doing what you love to do. I see that probably happening more now than it even happened 10 years ago, definitely more than 20 years ago. I think we're in a different era now. For me, looking back, we didn't always ask the right questions. We were very focused in on what skill sets do you have for this job. That's it. That's all. Not really understanding sort of the motive behind people being in the room, having applied for a job, and how long they want to stick around. Now, I appreciate that there are rules and regulations out there with what you can ask people. I think some of the questions I would ask in an interview, I would like to think they'd be okay. And I would love to sit down with the human resources department and look at, so here are the general questions you're asking, but what if we threw in some creative questions along the way, just to get a sense of where people are at, what do they really love to do. If you have a person who is doing something they love to do, every day will be an adventure for them. They will come in, they will be inspired to do their job, they will give you their utmost. But if you have a person in a position that isn't what they love to do, then yes, initially, they'll love the fact that they've got the job. They'll be inspired for a while, but I do see that motivation, that inspiration sort of falling on the wayside. And there's another spillover for that as well, in that if you know where a person's creative abilities lie, then when you're having meetings that require you to get a group of people together to come up with new ideas for a new project, you will have a better insight as a manager, as a director, to bring in the right people to have discussions, because we don't always listen to those who might have good ideas because we don't know sort of what their skill set, their real skill set is, what they love to do. And sometimes because someone is maybe not meeting our expectations, we don't ask them to join us in meetings because we don't think they have anything to offer. And I think that's a real shame. Whereas, if we start asking some creative questions in our interview process, we are more apt to get the right people in the right roles, be able to, help them advance, move them on, or ultimately say, this isn't the right role for you, but I know one that is based on what you've told me because of the questions we've asked. So again, I would have to sit down with someone in HR, understand sort of where our guidelines are with what we can ask, but at the same time, maybe bringing some questions in that actually ultimately help not only the person who's in for the job interview, but the person who's doing the interviewing. I want to see this happen. I don't know who in the world needs to sit down with me to look at this, but I definitely think there is some merit in this. So take, for example, and you may not be in a role of being a manager, a director, a CEO of a company, and it really doesn't matter what role the person who's interviewing you is in. I just think it's a matter of let's ask some additional questions. Not, let's say the right questions, but some additional questions. So, for example, and this may not be something we can actually ask, imagine being in an interview, though, and you've gone through your, standard questions of, what schooling have you had, what are you trained in, what have you done before. I'll stop it there because then I want to kind of get into the creative questions. So, for example, something I would like to ask is, so what do you do in your spare time? And not to pry and get too personal, but just in general, what do you do in your spare time? On the weekends, what kind of stuff do you get up to? Again, not to intrude on someone's personal life, but more to get a sense of what they love to do. And it may have to be, worded in such a way that it's not like I'm trying to invade your privacy, because ultimately, no, that's not what I'm trying to do. And maybe there would have to be some explanation to the individual. The reason I'm asking this is to make sure you're the right fit for the job you're applying for. So, for example, someone goes into an office, they're applying for a role that has to do with a business analyst, where you're going to be doing testing. So I want to know sort of what you do on the side so I have a better understanding of whether you will be a fit. And the only reason I'm using business analyst is because that's what I was. If I find out that one of the things you love to do is on the weekend, you live on a farm, you have horses, and you're there every moment you're not in the office. So you work with the horses, you train the horses, you get people who are coming in to do riding lessons, you're teaching them. That gets my head spinning a little bit of the way that here we are in a corporate office. You are going to be inside basically 8 hours a day doing perhaps mundane stuff, but your mind's going to be on, okay, I've got, little Sally coming by after work today. We're going to be taking the horse out, this, that, and the other thing. For me, not saying that this person may not be able to fill the role I've got, but it would lend me to take, you really want to be outside. You love nature. You want to be around horses. You love to teach. So even that teaching factor would be helpful, knowing that beginning. Perhaps what we need from you is to get you in a role within the company where you get to do some training. Because if I can see that you've got a real connection with people, then sitting you at a desk where you're on your own doing your own thing may not be the best use of your time, but perhaps there's a training department within the company where you would be better suited. Or maybe this really needs to just be a temporary, place for you to be until you can, take off and just do your horse and nature job, if you will. So I know that seems like a bit of an extreme. The point being is, if you can find out what people love to do, or if I ask the question of you, what are the things you like to do outside of work, then it does help, because if I have something specific I need somebody to do, and I'm finding out even they want to, they have a rock band that they are part of on the weekend, or they spend their time researching, history or something along that. I'm doing really broad extremes here, and I think it's to make a point that sometimes we have to ask additional questions that really have nothing to do with the job, but help us as employers to understand where a person is better suited so that we both benefit. And I think the other valid point to that is that if I'm asking specific questions on what do you love to do, then it does give me insight into whether or not, if I'm having a meeting on something and I'm bringing the normal people to it and we never get anywhere in that meeting, maybe I need to diversify in that let's bring in some different people who have different skill sets that we can have a general discussion whereby I know this person is really good at working with people. I know this person is really good at working by themselves. This person has a really broad creative mind that can throw ideas out and we can work with them. And I haven't spent a lot of time sort of thinking about all the ins and outs of this, but I definitely think there's room for us talking about what the creative joys are of the people that are working for us. And that also lends itself to, for me, again, going to the world I came from, is if there's a specific project that's coming up and I only need, and this worked for me, was there were sometimes they put me on projects that I could work on by myself. So if I have someone in my group that I know can work well by themselves, gets things done, then that's somebody I can go to. If I don't really know that about a person, then I may pick the wrong person who actually needs to be in a group environment, whereas I really need someone who needs to be single, solitary, and can get done what they need to do. So I feel that asking some creative questions, and again, we would have to go to what's the company about, what are the types of things they do, who are the people that they're looking for, and then let's throw in some additional questions here, which may seem odd to the person being interviewed, but at the same time will really give insight to a manager. And when specific projects can't come up, or if there's specific meetings that are going on, or specific anything, then as a manager, as a supervisor, as a director, a CEO, then I can go, oh, I know who I need to bring in on this meeting. Oh, I know who I can put into this role because they've shown me I know what to look for now. And I think that's really important too. What am I looking for? And if I've only asked general questions based on what the role is, but not sort of broaden that, then I don't know that Jane, who is working on a project right now, really has good communication skills. She can sit down, she can come up with questions she can ask in this group setting so we can get down to the nitty-gritty and spend less time on something that doesn't need. I've been in so many meetings where we've gotten absolutely nowhere real fast, and or you have people in meetings who, I hate to say it, but they think they know things that they don't actually know. So they're just sort of spitballing, if you will, and we don't get anywhere. And then we're spending more time than we need to. I think asking creative questions in an interview to get to who a person really is, what they truly love to do, is going to benefit companies in the long run. I just think it will. And I think, too, it gives people a sense of pride if you are pulling them in because you know they have a special skill set. You know they can sit down with people. You know they can collaborate with people. You know they can work alone. You know they have another interest besides. So if we are working in the corporate world and they have the technical skills to write code, but they can also train because they're doing that somewhere else in their lives, then when training needs to go on, then maybe you take that person from that tech role and you go, okay, we need you to do some training. We'll get you working with this other person who can put the training material together, but I want you to actually train it. Because not only do you have knowledge in coding, but you have, knowledge in being able to communicate with people, and we'll just get you to sit down with this other person who's actually writing up the program, so you can make sure that everything aligns with what we need it to be. I think that inspires people. I think that keeps people, inside their job, wanting to give you the best they can, because you're realizing they have more to offer. I think that's a true win-win situation for everybody. And I would really, and I am so serious about this, let's start asking people different questions in order to align them with the job, so we can advance them, so they don't get bored, so they feel like they're part of a team, and they're not just coming in and working 8 to 4 or 9 to 5, whatever it is, and going, wow, it's 1 o'clock, only 4 more hours. I would rather see somebody sit down at their desk when they come into work and go, cool, I got this to work on today. Time goes by fast. They're having a lot of fun. They're connecting with the right people. It gets to 4 o'clock and they're going, wow, where'd the day go? And they're excited about coming in the next day. I had days where I didn't want to be there. One, I didn't understand the creativity that was involved in my job, which now looking back, I can see where it was. And two, not always the right people were brought into the right meetings as far as I'm concerned. But again, not knowing what people can do, that's where the shortfall is. And I truly think, again, I'm going to speak it out again, there is the potential for human resources to work with supervisors and managers to ensure that, yes, we get, these are questions you need to ask. We're going to get you to start asking these questions. They fall within the availability that we can ask these questions in order to make sure we get people in the right role. And I'd rather say, as a manager or supervisor to someone who's coming to apply for a job with me, that if I can ask these questions, then I have a better sense of whether you're really going to fit into the role I need you to. And it's not saying you couldn't start here and then, pole vault into another area. But if I know what you love to do, and I know there's another department that's looking for somebody to fill a specific role, and I've asked you the right questions, then I can say, and not feel bad. I mean, sometimes people aren't right for the roles. I get that. But if I can say, you know what, this isn't a role for you, but I know another department that's looking for the skill sets that you have based on the questions I've asked you. And I'm willing to sort of introduce you to that individual, and then you can have a conversation with them, because this isn't the role for you. Happy here. And I want people to be happy in the roles that they have. If I needed to hire someone to help me with what I'm doing, there are going to be creative questions I'm going to ask them. Because if their focus is, so I'm creative all the way around with what I do, what I work with. If I have someone who comes in and says, I love math. The ultimate be all is math for me. I can do it in my head without even thinking about it. I envy those people. I think it's great that they can do it. But if they can't fill the role I've got, they're going to get bored, because I don't have a lot of math. I pick out colors. I measure things occasionally, specific products. I have to. But if that's not their thing, and it's all about math, or it's all about history, or even geography, like something outside the realm of what I'm doing, then they might be interested for a couple of days, but I do see it waning. That doesn't help either one of us out. So I feel that going forward, we need to expand the questions, create creative questions, be okay to be able to ask those questions, and truly get people in the roles that they're going to want to be in, not forever. If they're satisfied being in, one role for a while or for a long time, fair enough. But I would really like to get to the nuts and bolts of what are you doing on the weekends, or, what excites you as far as a creative moment goes. Like, what is it you love to do? And I don't think that's a wrong question to ask. I think it's a very important question to ask. And I think we could get a lot more people into the right roles when we start asking those creative questions. Anyway, that's all I've got on this one. I think it's a huge topic. I think it is one that's valuable. And I think it would also apply to schools when people are going off to college or university. What do you truly love to do? What are you doing in your spare time? What kind of shows do you watch? What kind of books do you read? I think it all lends itself to getting people into the right roles that'll keep them there, keep them happy, and give a company, a department, their lives. Everybody wins. Everybody wins when you get people into the right role. If you're not in the right role, it doesn't, I don't think it fares well on anybody. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this video, whether you agree with me or not, whether you could see or have been in a position where, you know what, I just took it because I wanted the money or I needed the money, but I really wanted to be doing something else instead. And maybe it's time we start asking those questions in order to make sure the right people are in the right roles for the right reason. Maybe it's time to make the creative interview a thing and not just be it tell me about what programming you've done for computers. That's where my thought goes on this day for this video. Again, let me know what you think in the comments below. For everyone who's joining me, thank you again. I like that I'm showing up for you. I like that I'm showing up for me. And may this be a journey, a creative journey, that we have a lot of joy with. Anyway, take care and bye for now.